Yeah, so little update for you guys. My original Koikatsu YouTube channel has now been lost to the point where it's unrecoverable. Yeah, so that two-factor authentication can be a double-edged sword if something goes wrong. But the good news is I'm still at it, and I'm going to be uploading things to this channel from now on, and I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So last time we were working on making a map and just getting it into Koikatsu with a bunch of unlit shaders so that we could just have the texture showing up pretty basic. But now we're just going to do a bunch more things and just get really advanced into it, and I can show you some life hacks and shortcuts I've learned along the way. So the first thing I wanted to mention was, so when you're making size adjustments so that your H points and models are the right size for the scene, one thing you can do is head into, so we're in the Koikatsu ModdingTools Unity project, so I'm going to head into the Gizmos folder, and this is full of just properly scaled .obj files. So what you can do is just go into File, Import, .obj, navigate to that folder, and then choose from all the positions that you can see here. I usually am pretty late on this process, so what ends up happening is I'm usually just going to end up scaling these up to the point where they're comfortable. So then we have this number here, so just don't forget this number. It's going to come into play later. But yeah, that helps you, if you're making a map, it helps you keep everything in scale. And one thing that I just did that you might have noticed was in this Blender thing here, I have this selectable toggle turned on. So now I can choose which objects will be selected if I just hit A. So what that helps me with is, if I turn this off, these won't get exported with the file if I just select everything and try to export. And for another life hack that I've picked up on is if you're using textures from a lot of different folders in a lot of different places, like I often do because I keep reusing assets and things like that to speed up my workflow. It can get very annoying to have to go hunting them down to try to get them all in the same place. So the easiest way to do that with Blender is to head up to File, External Data, Pack Resources, and then do it again, Unpack Resources, and choose Files in Current Directory, Create when necessary. Boom. And what that does is that will generate a folder right next to your blend file called Textures. And that's every texture that your file is using. So yeah, that's very convenient. So then what you can do is just copy that textures file into your map folder. Yeah, so you can just copy that textures file right into your map folder, and it's ready to go. So now finally, when you're ready to export, here I'm gonna just turn off everything we don't need. You can just hit you can just hit A, and what I've got here is an amazing plugin that I'll link in the description, called FBXBundle, which allows you to, with the one click, export a file to anywhere you would want to and not have to worry about that export dialog, having the right settings or anything. It just knows what to do, which I think is awesome. Alright, so then we just head into Campsite. We want it to be in the mesh folder, at least I do, and we'll just do that. I've set the bundling to be with parent objects. Now you can have it to be with other things like the scene, which will just bundle everything in the scene, and you can rename what the file will be up here. But I'm setting it to parent because it's going to be important later to have the ability to enable and disable, day objects, night objects, so that you can have different dynamic things happen, whether it's day or nighttime. So yeah, and all of this down here is just telling you what the files are going to contain, so that's cool. So we just take this and click export, and it should just generate those files in the Unity folder that I just created. One thing I forgot to mention, if if you're finding that your Blender file is pretty huge and there's a lot of data and it might be lagging your game out, there's a few things you can do to help with that. For one, just going over models with the Decimate modifier is one way that I have really helped myself cut down on superfluous data that doesn't matter. So if we go to wireframe, we turn off Decimate, and that look at this. There's no reason to have this many vertices and edges and faces on this little tennis racket. So I just turn it on Decimate, and it just turns it into this, which is a lot more manageable, and you literally can't tell the difference. The only thing that you can tell is like this gets a little bent up around the edge here, but in Unity you're not going to notice that. I've done that also with anything that uses a skin modifier. So skin modifiers are when you take just a line, and then you use the skin modifier to generate a mesh around that line, and then you can apply material to that mesh. But I'm just using the skin modifier, and then I just always throw a Decimate on top, because there's no reason for it to... Look at this. Look at this. There's no reason for that. There's way too many edges and stuff. So there you go. And then it's minimal loss to the actual visuals of the mesh. And you know, there's a lot of places I could probably keep using the Decimate. I've used Decimate on each of these trees, so I've gotten it as far down as I can because there's hundreds of these trees and hundreds of these little roots. But yeah, Decimate modifier, definitely keep that in your back pocket to cut down on your geometry. Now we're going to talk about the Unity import settings. So you know that number I told you to keep in the back of your mind, the one that you like. If you're working with a map, you might have scaled up your guide models to have a specific scale, so that they're comfortable inside the Blender file. So in order to make it compatible with Koikatsu, we need to scale the map back down again. Now, if you've scaled the map down in Blender, you won't have to do this, but for me, I have my ADHD workflow where I'm just doing whatever is convenient in the moment. So we're just going to take that number and we're going to go into Unity and we're going to say 1 divided by paste that number, and then just click apply. And no more fiddling, no more guessing, being like, is it accurate? Is it not accurate? No, it's accurate. It's perfect. It's literally what you set up in here, but now it's working inside of Unity. So yeah, that's awesome. All right, another thing I did to keep myself organized, which might help you, is if you go into the, I went into my general mods folder. What I did was I went into the examples folder and I copied that map list info file out to this mods folder, and I just renamed it latest map ID. And then I just, every time I make a map, I just update this file. And then what that helps me with is it allows me to, you know, never forget what the ID should be, and I never have to check. I just have to keep going to this file and increasing the number. Alright, so inside of our mod file, let's start setting up our materials, because as you can see, it's pretty lame looking. So we're gonna go into where the mesh generated all the materials, and the first thing I want to do is take all of these and turn off specular highlights and reflections. Now, why am I doing this? Well, I found that when I'm working with maps inside of Koikatsu, for some reason the game displays these objects all weird when you have these on, and I believe it has something to do with the fact that you're loading these maps in asynchronously and it's getting added onto some other map that's already there, so like the environment reflections are going to be different. But essentially, if you don't want things to look jank, you just want to turn these off from the get-go, and then selectively enable them on specific things that you think would require reflections, like metal objects or mirrors or water or anything like that. Speaking of metallics, let's go in here. So we have this this metal material here. I'm going to use this lantern as an example. So we just turn the metallic all the way up on this metal material. So what that did was that turn this up all the way. So now what we want to do with metal materials is anything that's highly reflective to where you couldn't ignore it. We just turn on specs and reflections, and it will do this. But what we want to do is set up a reflection probe, which will allow us to reflect the objects in the room, not just reflecting some random image. So if I hold Alt and middle click, it will set the location of the focus point right where I clicked, which will allow me to click Create, and then go into the Light section, do Reflection Probe. And what that will now let me do is, if I set this to real time, it will now reflect what's actually in the room. Let me turn up the resolution so you can really, tell. Oh, turn up the smoothness. There you go. So I turned the smoothness all the way up. So what you're seeing is the reflection of the reflection probe being applied to that lantern. Now, obviously, we don't want to go 2048. We're going to go with something that isn't going to break the game. So let's just keep it at like 16 or something like that. I think turn off HDR. I don't know why, but I think that's what we want to do. Oh, bonus tip for you. What I've noticed is if you take this slider on any material past 80%, which is in this is going to be 204. It's going to start looking washed out and white, even if you don't have the amplify color preset, so amplify color filter turned on. So I just leave things at 204 maximum, and then if I want more brightness out of them, I will shine a light on them, or I will increase their texture brightness, or anything like that. So you may have noticed things are looking kind of gross right now. That's because in here we have the default skybox turned on, so let's just go and turn that to none. And then just turn the ambient color up just so we can see what we're doing. We're probably going to turn that back down once we actually start putting lights in the scene. Alright, so we have this sky texture. Now, usually skies don't have shadows casted on them. Usually skies are one color. So what I do with things like this is I use an unlit shader. Texture, if you have a sky texture, but I'm going to use color for the moment. Now, obviously, you can use the Unity default, like Unity Skybox, and use that system. I'm kind of retarded, so I'm just gonna keep it like this. Keep it to what I know for the moment. You know, we all grow at our own pace. So I'm just for the daylight texture or daylight color, I'm just gonna keep it at that. Maybe put a few clouds in the sky. I don't know. So let me finish setting up these materials real quick, and I'll get back to you. So if you have a texture with transparency, obviously if you want it to show the transparency, you just click cut out. Alright, I'm about to show you something that's going to blow your mind. So in KKModdingTools, you have access to these standard shaders. You have access to all the Shader Forge shaders that come with Koikatsu. But there's also something you can do that I didn't realize until I started experimenting around. So if you head to the Assets folder and Shader Forge, and then you go to Example Assets, Shaders, you have a whole bunch of different things to play with in here. So what I've done is I've kind of made my own shaders a little bit with Shader Forge, which do some specific things that I've wanted to do. So, you know, obviously there's all these examples you can use and build from. So what I've done is I took the refraction example and made kind of my own version of it. So if I open this in Shader Forge, you're going to see it's kind of doing a lot here. I mean, if you're familiar with Blender shaders, then this should be pretty easy to pick up on if you know what you're doing. So, yeah. This isn't a tutorial on how to make these, but I'm going to tell you that I have made two of these, which I will put in the description, and I'm about to show you how both of them work. So the first one I'm showing you is the terrain shader that I called it the terrain shader because that's what I use it for. So if I just go into here, examples, terrain, blah. So what this does is it allows you to use different textures on the same material and swap between them depending on a color mask. So similar to how Koikatsu does coloring with their models, except now it works with this terrain here. And it also is reactive to point lights and things like that. So what I will now do is show you what I mean. So if I go to Assets, Mods, go to where my mod is, go to Mesh, Textures, here we go. Alright, so if I drag this texture in, which I've generated myself, I've made this for this purpose, I just drag it in here. And then I drag all the different textures that I want to use into these different slots here. Let me figure this out. So I think the first one was leaves. The second one was grass. The third one was dirt. And I don't think there was a fourth one yet, but I could have added a fourth one if I wanted to. So what that's going to do is that's going to blend between all these different textures based on these colors here. So the first one is going to be placed where black is. The second one is going to be placed where red is. The third one is going to be placed where green is. And the fourth one is going to be placed where blue is. Now you're going to see some yellow in there, and that's going to be a mixture of red and green, which is going to just kind of have both of them halfway, you know, showing up. So obviously the tiling on this is really bad. So I'm going to actually check what my tiling settings were in Blender. I had a custom material for this just for me to test this out. So I think the leaves, yeah, the leaves were 36. The grass was 16, and the dirt was 8. Okay, so we just do 36 by 36, 16 by 16, I think, yeah, 8 by 8. The benefit of this is that we can pretty much paint textures wherever we want them to be, and you can display them at whatever resolution you want, which is very powerful. And the reason I did this instead of using something built in like Unity's terrain tool is because I wanted to make the terrain in Blender and then use it in Unity, and it was so much more effective for my specific workflow. I haven't put in, you know, different options like normal maps for each texture or anything like that. Maybe I should, but at the moment I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's the terrain shader that I created. Oh, I missed this. The red here. Alright, since I didn't have any water in my map that I'm working on, I will just show you how this other shader works in here. So if you want good looking water, I mean, at least basically good looking water, it's kind of hard to use just regular transparent materials or anything like that, because the water kind of just sits there and it doesn't look like alive or anything like that. So what I've done was I've taken the refraction shader and actually turned it into a bit more comprehensive solution. So I'll put that in the description as well. So let me just choose refraction. And what we're seeing here, well, we don't see any change at first, but if we change the color here to something that we can see, and then change the alpha value, there you go. So we start off with something like this because there's a default normal map applied. Now the look of the water is gonna look different. Now, hold on a minute. This kind of looks a bit like ice. If you wanted to make ice, you could probably use this. But all right. So we take the normal map. I have a water normal map that I've downloaded. You can probably find one on Google Images or something like that. So there you go. You can change the intensity of the refraction. I don't want to change it too much because it starts to look weird. So then you can change the speed at which it moves so that you have something that looks like this, which I think is a lot better than just a blank texture, you know. Yeah. Anyway, that was the refraction shader. I'll leave that in the description. Alright, so now we're going to start setting up the lights in this scene so that we can actually see shadows being cast and all that good stuff. So let me click on light, and I'm going to create a directional light. And what I want to do is turn on shadows, and then render mode, let's just make it important so that it's, yeah. So let's see, what direction do we want the light to shine in on? With the light here, you can set your culling mask, which will tell Unity what to shine the light on. So if you didn't want to shine it on your character, you know, if you wanted to keep it so that the character light is what is illuminating your character, then you would disable this. Oh yeah, make sure everything in your map here is on the map layer. There you go. It's hard to talk about this because everyone's setup is so different. Or I should say, my setup is so different from everyone else's. I'm going to try to give as best information as I can. I kind of want the light to shine on the backpack. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. I'm gonna add this point light into this lantern here. Oh. There you go. So let me add a point light onto the lantern. So just right click the lantern, point light right here, so that it shines a light into the room. I'm gonna turn on soft shadows. Now you be careful how many lights you have that are casting shadows, because it will be a major effect on performance if you have more than, I'd say, 2. At least on my machine. So I guess the fewer you have, the better. So let me just adjust the near plane a bit. Yeah. And then we can adjust the shadow strength, perhaps, to make it less in your face. But yeah, okay, so those are the lights in our scene. I think there's no other lights that I can think of for the moment until I put it in the campfire. Then there will be another light. Alright. To achieve the full effect of these lights with your characters, I recommend switching your character's materials to use the KKUTS shader instead of the default Koikatsu shaders. That's really what I've been trying to get at. With the default Koikatsu shaders, this light won't cast any illumination over your character at all. And nothing in the environment will cast shadows on your character either. But if you use the KKUTS shaders, that will all be supported. So that's why I've kind of changed my Koikatsu workflow to be using KKUTS shaders instead of the default shaders. And in that vein, so because I'm adding my own directional light to the scene, because I'm adding my own directional light to the scene, it's really not in my best interest to have the character light also shining light on the character, because then it's just going to look washed out and blown out, and you just don't want that. So what I've done is I've created a plugin for Koikatsu which looks in the scene for something called KK Kara Light Disabler, and if it finds something like that, then it will disable the Kara light when you load the scene. And then, you know, if you unload the scene, it will re-enable it. So what that helps you do is have scenes with your own custom lighting, and then your characters will dynamically be lit up by it, and it'll look really natural, like they're really in the scene. And that's something that I've been working towards for a long time. That's something I've wanted for a while, so I've finally figured out how to do it. And that's with the combination of KKUTS shaders and this plugin here. And yeah, using these lights. Okay, so I've done everything so far except for the campfire, and that's because I have it's kind of a special case because with the FBXBundle export, it doesn't actually support armatures or bones or anything. So I'm going to actually export it separately because I have some specific things I want to do with it. For one, I have this little animation I want to play, which, you know, looks pretty nice. If you're in the scene and you just see that campfire roaring, there you go. Looks pretty cool. So I want to be able to translate that to Unity. So in order to do that, I'm going to export this and then bake the animation into like a animation clip for Unity. So yeah, I've selected everything in the fire armature thing. So if I just grab this, go to export, FBX, and then mesh. So I'm going to call this campfire, or probably just fire.fbx, and then I'm just going to only use the selected objects. And then we want the armature to not add leaf bones. And then, let's see, bake animation, yes. And that should about do it. I believe that's all I need. And we might have to play with these 3 buttons if it ends up being exported at 90 degrees. Okay, export FBX. And so now that I have that, I can go into mesh. Let me grab this number. Let me actually paste that into here as well. And then grab the fire. Very cool. Alright, so we have our fire here, and I just want to place it right in the center here. You know what happened? It exported with the proper positioning because the origin point of the FBX is actually at the origin point of the world, so I actually didn't need to do anything. So here we go. We have our fire. There should be, yes, this armature here, and from what I see, we should have, yes, our animations and avatar are right here. So let me try to explain animations in Unity a little bit. Every animation in Unity has 3 components to it. The actual animation data, like the keyframes and everything. The component that tells the object which animation to play at any time, and then the component that tells the game which object should be playing that animation. So what this looks like is this fire here. The animator is going to tell Unity that this object should be animated, and then we can choose which animation controller to apply to it. So let me just create an animation controller called fire. So if I put this into here, this is going to let me choose in here which animation will be played, and the actual animation clip should be this one, or this one actually, maybe. I think it's both of these actually. So yeah, we're gonna at least grab one of these. So we're gonna grab this and drag it into here. And so now, when the scene starts, it's going to start playing this animation. Now let's make sure these loop. These do not loop. Oh, I can't. Here, can I extract these animations? Okay, forgive me. So what I found out was that if you go to Animations tab, then you can start choosing things. Okay, so in loop time is what we want on these animations because they're supposed to loop forever. So I'm just going to click Apply. And it should, if we click play, it should animate something. Yeah, look at that. It's playing the animation that I had in Blender. Now the only thing is, it's not playing the full animation because I had a few things that were happening. So we've got this breathing animation going, but we don't have the proper animation for the random spinning flickering. which is something that I've added to the fire. So what I'm going to do is just recreate this inside of Unity, since it would be way too complicated. See, I've already tried to do it. It'd be way too complicated to actually try to combine two animations into one. So I may want to add a component here for an animator. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the fire here, and we're going to set no avatar, because there's no armature. This is not an armature styled, this is not an animation that requires an armature. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the animation tab, which you can get if you open up the window here. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we can actually just do it from here. So so you just select the object you want to animate, create a clip, and then it will conveniently allow you to save that anywhere you want. Let's call this fire flicker. Alright, so there you go. You now have the clip, and you have this controller, which was generated automatically. So let me just type fire flicker. There you go. Actually, this is going to be... whatever, doesn't matter. Okay. So, now we have our fire flicker here, and we can just make sure we have the object selected. Click Add Property, Transform, and what I want to do is change the rotation. And so what that will allow is, if we take this Y direction and just change it to different random values over the course of time. And what we want to do is make sure that these are set to, let's see, rotation Y. We want to make sure that these points here are not going to, you know, interpolate linearly where it slides around like that. We want it to snap. So we're going to take these tangents and we're going to say constant. So it's going to look like that. And if you do that fast enough, you can tell it's going to look like a flickering fire, you see. And then if we combine this animation with the one that we just saw from the armature, when we play the scene, both of those animations are going to play. Let me make sure that this is set to loop. It is. Alright. We're going to see. Cute little fire flicker animation. There you go. Now, there's one more animation that I want to do, but we have to set up the material first before I worry about that. So let's get this fire material set up. So this fire material is going to be an unlit texture, and I'm just going to grab the fire texture from this folder. It's this one. And okay, not unlit texture, it's going to be transparent cutout. There you go. Okay. So if we could click play, I mean, already that looks pretty good, but there's more we can do. So what I want to do is animate another property on this this fire here. So this is going to be on the sphere mesh, which is the actual mesh part. Oh, well, you can't move a mesh when it's paired to an armature, but you get the picture. It's the actual mesh part. So we're going to just animate this texture here. So here's what I want to do. I want to add a component to the skin mesh renderer. It's going to be an animator. And we're going to create an animator controller. Call it fire float, I guess, because what we're going to do is we're going to animate this texture moving upwards on the model. So we grab that, and we're just going to make a new clip, create animation clip. There you go, fire float. So we're just going to take this animator, drag this onto it, drag this clip into here, that should fix things up for us. So that, yes, now we can animate on this flame here. So we're going to add a property, and this is going to be a slight bit of a hunt because we need to figure out where we're at. I think it's ST, which might translate to standard texture or something like that. Or something. So what we're now going to animate is the Y offset of the material so that it looks like this, as you can tell. So what we want to do is we want to set it so that at the beginning of the animation it's default, and at the end of the animation we have a I think it's a 1 on the Y here. So no, okay, I was wrong. It's the opposite. So we want a -1. And what that will do is, you see on the side here, it's going to show it's animating. Yep. And if you just click play, it's gonna show that. Now, as you can see, there's a bit of an issue because the animation is kind of starting and stopping. So if we go to curves, we need to set this so that instead of it being like what would be the thing? Instead of it, you know, animating on a curve, we need to animate it linear. And what that will do is that will just make it look seamless, where it's like this. So, now that we've set all of that up, if we click play and look at this, it's going to look like this. So this fire float needs to loop. Make sure it loops.
Wake up.
I know this was kind of complicated for an introduction to animation, but hopefully some of this made sense. I just set up, what I did was I literally just set up 3 different animations on the same object, so that might have been a bit confusing. Sorry about that if it's a bit confusing. You might try looking up a basic Unity animation tutorial if that was not helpful to you. I think what I want to do is modify this fire texture because I think it's a bit too orange. So I'm going to go into the campsite. I'm going to go into textures. I'm just going to open this in paint.net. And I'm just going to, let's try, I think what I want to do is just make sure that the hues are not too different. So maybe the reds go back a bit more yellow. Yeah. So that it's not, you know, so red. It's animating quite nicely. Somewhere on this this thing I want to add a light. Alright. So let's switch it from daytime to nighttime so that I can properly figure out how this is going to end up looking in nighttime environment. So instead of daytime, we're going to go nighttime. Now, nothing changed because the nighttime sky has the same texture as the daytime sky. So I'm going to just duplicate this and just go sky night. I'm lazy. I'm so lazy. Okay. Nighttime. Sky night. And honestly, just jet black. That's fine. And then, so on the lighting here, okay, so we had this turned up for the convenience of, you know, editing and stuff, but what I really want is to have it be dark like this. Alright? And this directional light should be in the daytime section only. There we go. So now we need to have this campfire generate enough light to light up the whole space. So let's just adjust this a little bit. Use orange, slight orange color. And we're going to cast shadows with it. And turn up the range a lot. And I'm noticing that I didn't shade the terrain smooth, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into Blender, and I'm going to disable the fire, and then select everything again. Oh, don't select the guide. Make sure that that's not export it along with everything. And then we're gonna make sure we shade this smooth, and then select everything, export again. Yeah, there you go. Now the ground is smooth. Okay, so we have that campfire. Maybe not. We don't maybe need it to be that huge with our range. Just enough. And sometimes the results may vary in Koikatsu, so we gotta worry about that. So I'm gonna turn down the strength of the shadows just a bit. So there we go. We've got a nice, cool looking, sort of spooky. Let's make this even more orange, maybe even slightly darker. Spooky looking camp setting, just in time for Halloween, right? So when it's nighttime, I'm not going to have any directional lights in the scene. So we only have 2 point lights generating shadows in the scene, so it's not going to be so taxing on our system. I suppose I could animate the light. I could add an animation to this light right here. Let's try that. Let's see if we can get that working. And I think what I want to do is make it so that the animation isn't quite so crazy. So I'm just going to bring this up. Something like that. Make sure that that's set to loop. Haha! Very cool, right? And we can still adjust all the other aspects. We just don't want to touch the intensity because that's always animating. And that's something I usually do with my lights, is I never touch the intensity. I always just, if there's something that's too bright, I will turn down the color. And that helps me keep things consistent. Alright, so one more thing I want to add to this fire is some particle effects. So I'm going to take this fire here, and I'm going to add another object called a particle system. And by default, it just looks like that, so we need to change some settings. But what I want to do is I want to add some sparks floating upwards, right? You can already see what we're going for. So let's change the color to orange. Click the drop down, random between 2 colors. So then we want maybe a white. I want these to scale like that. I think, do I want this? Okay, that'll help. I think I want that, but start size can be smaller. Hey, look, we're already getting somewhere. What I also want to do is make sure that these things fade in and out instead of just starting and stopping, because you're going to see them like pop out of the sky. Grab the color over lifetime, and so with that you can adjust the alpha transparency. You can create some keyframes. So we can create some keyframes. So when the thing starts, I want it to start at 0. And then when it ends, I want it to end at 0. Color over lifetime. There you go. There you go. It's fading in, then fading out. We can actually, let's add another keyframe here just so we can control like when it does this. Now you want to keep your eye on these particle counts. I think 50 is actually pretty good. I think I want the cone of that animation to be a bit oh. Haha, it's not even focused on the freaking fire. Alright. Let's make the radius pretty freaking small. And this is what it's gonna look like in game, hopefully. Yep, that's right. I want to add some audio to the scene. I've got 3 different files here. If you're using audio, you got to make sure it's looped properly and that it's in mono so that you have maximum control over everything. But what I would suggest before you start messing around with throwing audio in is not to make audio in your map that would annoy people, because there's no way to turn it off as far as I can tell. I'm gonna have to probably write a program to actually route this to the correct mixer channel within Koikatsu, because at the moment, if you just have an audio source put inside a scene, it's not gonna be in a mixer group. Be very careful what kind of audio you put in your maps. Just make sure it's not intrusive and it doesn't annoy people. If you plan on distributing it, if it's for your own personal use, that's most of my maps. Then just do whatever you want. You know, just a little disclaimer. Do this. Create a audio source, like so, and then just grab the campfire clip. Put it in here, play on awake, loop. Now we want to make sure the spatial blend is 3D because the sound is going to be coming from the fire. Let me also add to the scene what you need to, if you're going to test this out, you need a camera. Now you got to make sure you delete this camera before you export, or else you're going to mess up Koikatsu. Alright, so we've got this sound coming out of the campfire. The spread was 125, and the spatial blend was 0.69, so let's just do 0.7. That should do it for the fire. And we're going to use the owls. And I want this to be relatively low volume because these owls could get annoying and repetitive. Alright. For crickets. And these ones need to be a lot quieter. 0.014 probably. Yeah, doesn't this just feel cozy? I want to be here. I might change that campfire because I keep hearing those two popping sounds. So if I go into the thing I had for the campfire. Yeah, right here. So let's just cut those, and then we'll create a cut here, and then just kind of fade this. Beautiful. So now I want to show you how to add variations to a map based on the time of day. So I showed you, let me show you in a Blender file. So the way I set this up is each of these objects here, everything inside these collections is parented to one empty, which is one is called environment, one is called day, one is called night, and they're all at the origin of the world. And so what that allows this plugin to do is you just choose parent, and then it will export each of these in their respective places. And everything's going to be located inside. So what that allows us to do is things that are specific to daytime will be put into the day category. Things that are specific to nighttime will be put in the night category. So let me turn off the night category and turn on the day category. And as you can see, we'll do that. I want the fire to only be playing. Let's see here. Oh, and also these sounds. Let's see, is this the fire sound? I think I want the fire sound to be on the fire object itself. Okay. So these two audio sources and the fire need to be only happening at night. Like so. And as you can see, when we have the shadows set so harsh on daytime, it's going to look weird. So what I like to do sometimes with the daytime is add another directional light just to kind of offset the color difference. So we're going to rotate it by 90 so that it's facing directly downwards. Soften things up for daytime. Now, the issue here is there's a bit of a limitation here. I might see what I can do if I can make a plugin that will help with this, but there is no way to set two different ambient color light settings for day or night, which would be awesome so that you could have some precise control over how things look. But for now, if you want a nighttime setting where things are pitch black, you're gonna need to set the ambient color to pitch black. But the thing is, during the daytime, it doesn't look quite as good, so you're gonna have to do things like, you know, create this directional light, which helps liven things up. So we have specific things for daytime. So one more thing I want to add to the daytime is a particle of the fire that has gone out. So let's go to the daytime. We're going to just create an object, which is going to be another particle system, and this will be on the daytime object. Oh, I see the scale. Okay, 1, 1, 1. Okay, for some reason it wanted to scale it down. I don't know why. Okay, so I have a few more clips to work with right here. So for the daytime, I'm just having crows out, and then I'm having just some sound of the wind blowing. So now, in the map section, we have the visible list, so size 1 on both of these. Visible list size 1. So then we just take day, put it on the part with the daytime. Take night, and I'm putting it on the part with the nighttime. You will have an evening time, but I haven't made a specification for evening. I'm going to just export this now and show you what we can do to tweak things. Alright, now that we're here in Koikatsu, I can actually show you a few things about how we can further optimize this. We could have had the actual lighten, this directional light here. We're gonna say, I usually call these map brighten directional light. So what I'm going to do with this is actually I'm going to make it so that it does not brighten the color layer, so that the only thing that gets lit up like a little bit extra is going to be the map itself. Because as you can see, it looks like Daisy doesn't quite fit into the environment, so hopefully I can get it to where she looks a little bit more like she fits in. So let me get back to you once I export again. Okay, so I did make an adjustment, and she looks pretty okay. She's not perfect. Obviously, you can see there's a lot of harsh-looking shadows in the scene, but nothing's going to be perfect. She does look good in the night setting. So as you can see, the night setting. So if we use just a regular Koikatsu character, let me show you the power of KKUTS. Okay, yeah. So if we look at this, and we look at the comparison between the two. So Daisy is using KKGS, this other character is using default Koikatsu shaders, which I guess could be fine, but with Daisy especially, the environment can cast shadows on her too, which is something you can't have with the default shaders. So, you know, if she goes indoors, or if this character goes indoors or something, it's going to look the exact same as if it was outdoors. Oh, those particles aren't really showing up, are they? They need to be, I think they need to be thicker. Just as a reminder, if your shading, if your color filter is default, it's going to look a lot darker inside of Koikatsu than it does in Unity, so you will have to do some adjusting if you want to continue to use this color filter. For me personally, I've changed it to none, and I'm going to release the map, but I'm not going to adjust the coloring to match the color filter, because that's just not what I do anymore. So just be aware of that. Sorry, that's something I needed to make clear. Alright, I just noticed something else tiny. Apparently this light bleeds through to the other side. So I think it might be in my best interest. It might be in my best interest to change this into a spotlight instead of being a point light, and have it be pointed in this direction. Have it have a wide angle, like so. That might be a bit better, to be honest. Yeah, I like that better. Ooh, little thing here. Reflection probes, you want to make sure that they are set to refresh on every frame. Now this may be a bit more performance costly, but it does mean, because if you are playing a map and then you switch from, you know, day to night again, you're gonna need these reflections to be updated to compensate for that. And if it's set to only update the reflection on awake, refresh mode. Oops. Whoa. Okay, yeah, if it's only set to refresh on awake, that means that it will only update the reflections the first time you load the map. Okay, so I just went on a massive detour testing out different reasons why the smoke might not have been showing up at all. It wasn't showing up at all. I was trying to increase the opacity, I was trying to do all these different things, and it just wouldn't show up at all. So what ended up working was, of course, taking the room, setting the layer to map, yes to change all children. The particle system does not work unless it's on the map layer or just on one of the visible layers. Anything on the default layer just doesn't show up. That's something you need to keep in mind. I'm still seeing Daisy that slightly looks out of place with this lighting setup, so what I'm going to try to do is get a good balance here with the directional light and the character light. So the directional light that's actually shining on her and the directional light that's shining on the map. So both of them are at bright white right now. By the way, to pull up the this menu, you just press F12. F12, I just typed in directional so I could find the same object that is in here. It's named directional light. So there it is. So then you can come in here, go down, click on light, and what that does is that brings up all the settings that you can adjust. So what I want to focus on here is this color. Now, there's no way to directly adjust the color from within Koikatsu, which is a shame, but I mean, I'm just going to use an external program to like slightly adjust it. So I'm going to copy these first 6 letters. The first 6 are the only ones you need, and then paste them into paint.net. So if I click this, paste those 6 letters into here, and now I can adjust the color. Grab this, copy it, go back to Koikatsu, paste into here, press enter. There you go. Now that was a bit too drastic of a change, I think, but we're getting somewhere. I think 78 maybe. Maybe closer, just closer to the top. We're just gonna keep playing with it until it works. Okay, so we're getting around to where we want to be. So she sort of blends in a little bit more. So yeah. So now what we do is we take this color that we just got, and we go into Unity, into that same light that we wanted to adjust, and then you know, in the color section we just highlight the first 6 letters, paste, and there you go. Now we can export, and then, you know, the next time we're in this map, it will show the correct thing. It'll look like this. I think after that, there's not a whole lot left to do. The only thing I want to show you is how you can set up your H positions extremely easily. So as you know, in Koikatsu you have all these poses you can change your character into. Well, these can also help you figure out precisely where you want your H positions to be. So we have her sitting in a chair. So what we do is we just kind of try to adjust it to where it looks okay. Now, here's the thing about adjusting this. You might want to use Chikarin or one of the more default looking characters to actually figure out where you want things to be. Since Daisy is a bit shorter than most characters, I'm kind of adjusting things to fit her. Because if you just use the default and she's on the floor and her legs are on the floor, she kind of clips down into the floor, whereas other characters would just be sitting on the thing. I don't like how they set up the sitting, where it doesn't depend on where her butt's supposed to go. It depends on where her feet are supposed to go, which is stupid. But that's just how Koikatsu is set up. I think it's better to be slightly floating above than to be clipping in. So yeah. So I have here with the seated position. Now the thing here is, I think by default in KKModdingTools there's this offset position, which messes up what we're trying to do here. So I'm just going to hit 0 on that, and then we just go back to Koikatsu. We grab the X, Y, and Z position and paste them into Unity. So then what we see is this. So this is what it's going to look like for a default character sitting at that chair. But for Daisy it looks like this. There's just, you know, there's going to be differences between characters, and there's almost no way to account for that. So it's better to have a character floating above this chair than to have a character sunk into the chair like this. Quick tip for when you're setting up H points. If you find that the actual model for the item that you click on to get into the H point in game is in the wrong spot, let me show you. So if I enable this disabled thing and then I go to this collider here, it's sunken into the chair. So you'd have to just go to the collider under any of these H points and then adjust it. So I have mine set for 0.4, and there you go. And then it just works. Okay, final thing here. If we look at this map in our Explorer here, that is 17 megabytes. Now, if we crunch down our textures and our audio files, we can take a large chunk out of that file size. So let's go into Unity. And let's set it to daytime. Let's just enable everything at once, just so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so let's go into Mesh, Textures, and let's just start slashing things. Wood 2 is what this is. We might slash this to maybe 128. And that reduced it from 85 kilobytes to 21 kilobytes. I think that's all the textures I'm using. Okay. Since these are all high frequency sounds, we probably can't adjust the sample rate too bad. Let's just see how much we can get away with, actually. Nah. Could probably get away with that one. And that one. We're going to... Let's see what this one sounds like. Okay, we're going to set this one slightly higher. that one we might be able to get away with. We might be able to get away with this. This one we probably need a little bit higher. Alright, here we are with our final file size for the game. I might do a few more things off camera, so this might not actually be the final file size, so just be aware of that. But for the most part, yeah, the map is pretty much done, and I hope you learned some things. And I'm gonna try to release this for download beginning of October. Hopefully the tutorial can come out at the same time. So yeah, I think I just about covered everything that I wanted to cover today. Like always, if you have any anything you need help with, you can visit the Koikatsu Discord channel or Discord server, which will help you out. Visit the mod modeling channel or the mod programming channel, depending on your issue. And yeah, you should be able to get the help you need. So I think I'm about ready to call it for this video. Yeah. Have a wonderful day / evening / night, and I'll see you when I see you. Really, that's something I've learned. There are no guarantees, but you know, as long as I have things to teach, as long as I have motivation, there will be videos. So there we go. See you guys.